The alien ships appeared without warning above Earth's skies. They were massive, each one larger than any city humanity had ever built. There were 47 of them, hanging in orbit like dark clouds before a storm. Their hulls reflected no light, absorbing everything, making them look like holes torn in the fabric of space itself. Admiral Sarah Chen stood in the command center beneath Geneva, watching the displays with steady eyes. Around her, officers moved with controlled urgency, their faces pale but focused. Every screen showed the same thing. Humanity was surrounded by a force they couldn't match. Not yet, anyway. The message came 3 hours after the ships arrived. It appeared on every device on Earth simultaneously. Phones, computers, even old television sets that hadn't been turned on in years flickered to life with the same broadcast. A face appeared. It was humanoid enough to be unsettling, with 2 large eyes that reflected light like mirrors and skin that seemed to shift between gray and blue. When it spoke, the words came in perfect English, Chinese, Arabic, and 1,000 other languages all at once. "I am Emissary Calthor of the Sovereign Collective. You will listen carefully, for I will say this only once." Sarah watched the broadcast on the main screen. She had known this day would come. They all had, ever since humanity's first colony ships encountered the Collective's border patrols 20 years ago. It had been clear that Earth existed in a dangerous neighborhood. The Sovereign Collective spans 47 star systems. Calthor continued. His voice was emotionless, like someone reading a grocery list. "We are the dominant power in this region of space. You are new, weak, and undeveloped. These facts are not insults. They are simply truth." Sarah's jaw tightened. Beside her, Director James Okonkwo watched with an expression that might have been carved from stone. "Under the laws of the Collective, which have governed this region for 3,000 of your years, you have 2 choices. You may submit to vassalage, providing 60% of your planetary resources and 40% of your population as labor to the Collective's greater purpose. In return, you will receive protection and technology." A murmur ran through the command center. Sarah raised one hand and silence fell immediately. "Your second choice is refusal," Calthor said. "We will then demonstrate why submission is preferable. Your cities will burn. Your oceans will boil. Those who survive will serve anyway, but as slaves rather than vassals. This is how the galaxy works. The strong rule. The weak serve." The broadcast showed images then. Worlds burning under orbital bombardment. Populations herded into massive ships, their faces blank with despair. Cities reduced to glass and ash in seconds. "These are not threats," Calthor said as the images played. "These are demonstrations of historical fact. 73 species have faced this choice. 73 species chose wisely. You are the 74th. You have 30 days to announce your submission. Use them to prepare your population for their new role." The broadcast ended. Every screen went dark simultaneously. For a long moment, nobody in the command center spoke. Then everyone started talking at once, voices overlapping in controlled panic. Sarah let them have 30 seconds before she spoke. Quiet. The room fell silent again. Sarah turned to face her officers. They were good people, every one of them. Smart, dedicated, brave. They had trained for this moment, but training and reality were very different things. "Communications. Get me secure channels to every world leader. I want them here within 6 hours. Defense. Begin evacuation of primary population centers to underground shelters. Make it look panicked and disorganized. Science Division. Start broadcasting every analysis of the Collective ships you can manage. Make sure they intercept it. I want them thinking we're desperately trying to find their weaknesses." Orders flowed smoothly now. People moved with purpose. Sarah watched them for a moment, then turned to Okonkwo. "Walk with me, Director." They left the command center through a side door, entering a corridor that led deep into the mountain. No one followed. No one would dare. 30 days, Okonkwo said quietly. "That's generous of them." "They're confident," Sarah replied. "Overconfident. They think we're like the others. We spent 20 years making sure they'd think that." Okonkwo pulled a small device from his pocket, checking it briefly before continuing. "All our colonies reported terrified populations, fragmented governments, primitive weapons. We showed them exactly what they expected to see." They reached a door marked with symbols that didn't appear in any official directory. Okonkwo pressed his palm against the scanner. The door slid open with a whisper of displaced air. Inside was a room Sarah had only seen twice before. Screens covered every wall, showing data streams that would mean nothing to most people. To Sarah, they were beautiful. Each one represented years of preparation, decades of secret work. "How long until we're ready?" she asked. "We've been ready for 10 years, Okonkwo replied. He moved to a central console and began typing. "But the question isn't whether we're ready. It's whether the galaxy is ready for what we're about to do." Sarah understood what he meant. Humanity was about to break every rule the galaxy had followed for millennia. They were about to show the sovereign collective and every other power watching from the shadows that Earth played a different game. "Show me the Dark Fleet," she said. Okonkwo pressed a sequence of keys. The screens changed, showing locations scattered throughout the Sol system, the Kuiper Belt, the far side of the moon, deep space construction zones that officially didn't exist. Each location showed weapons platforms, ships, and technology that humanity had been building in absolute secrecy for 40 years. "They don't know," Okonkwo said softly. "Their sensors never detected the construction. Their spies never found the facilities. They think they're seeing everything, but they're blind to 90% of our actual military capability." Sarah studied the displays. Ships designed for stealth, weapons designed to kill things much larger than themselves, AI systems that exceeded every ethical limitation humanity had publicly agreed to. They had built all of this in the shadows, waiting for the day when the galaxy's predators came calling. "Begin Protocol Nightfall," she said. "Activate all assets. Silent running until my command." Acknowledged. Okonkwo's fingers moved across the console. "Admiral, once we do this, there's no going back. The galaxy will know what we're capable of. They'll fear us, but they'll also want us destroyed." "They already want to destroy us or enslave us," Sarah replied. "At least this way they'll have to work for it." She turned to leave, then paused at the door. "James, how many species have successfully resisted the collective?" "None, Admiral. We'll be the first." Sarah smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "Good. I'd hate for this to be routine." Above them, the collective fleet waited in orbit, confident in their power and certain of Earth's submission. They didn't know that deep in the solar system's shadows, humanity's dark fleet was waking up. They didn't know that the weak, frightened species they'd come to dominate had spent 2 decades preparing for exactly this moment. The sovereign collective expected submission. They were about to learn that humanity had a different answer prepared. The Kuiper Belt was cold and dark, exactly as it had been for billions of years. Chunks of ice and rock drifted in the void, ignored by everyone except the occasional scientific probe. At least that's what the collective's sensors reported. Deep inside one particular asteroid, designated KB447 on human charts, something was waking up. Commander Marcus Webb floated in zero gravity, watching as his crew brought the facility online. They moved efficiently, checking systems that hadn't been active in 3 years. Everything had been kept in cold storage, waiting. Now the waiting was over. "Reactor online," reported Lieutenant Hayes from engineering. "Power at 100%. No anomalies detected," Marcus nodded. "Weapons? Charging now. We'll be ready to fire in 20 minutes. Around them, the asteroid's interior hummed with energy. What looked like rock from the outside was actually a hollow shell containing 8 railguns, each capable of accelerating a tungsten rod to 90% of light speed. The collective ships in Earth orbit wouldn't even see them coming. This was just one facility. There were 58 others like it scattered throughout the Kuiper Belt, each one disguised as ordinary space debris. The collective thought they were watching an empty solar system. They had no idea they were surrounded. On the far side of the moon, in a crater that never saw sunlight, another kind of awakening was taking place. Dr. Lisa Park walked through the underground complex, her footsteps echoing on metal floors. Around her, robots moved with mechanical precision, preparing ships that had been built in secret over the last 15 years. Each ship was small, no bigger than a shuttle, but what they lacked in size they made up for in stealth and firepower. "How many are operational?" she asked her assistant. 347, Doctor. Another 53 are in final checks and should be ready within 12 hours. Lisa stopped beside one of the ships. It was sleek and black, with surfaces designed to absorb sensor waves rather than reflect them. No running lights, no markings, nothing that would make it visible against the darkness of space. The humans called them shadows. Once they launched, they would be nearly invisible. "Load the AI cores," she ordered. "Full combat protocols. No safety restrictions." Her assistant hesitated. "Doctor, Those protocols violate the Warsaw Accords on artificial intelligence. We agreed never to create machines that could kill without human oversight. We agreed to those accords because we wanted the galaxy to think we were peaceful and ethical, Lisa replied, her voice cold. The collective is sitting above our planet right now, planning to kill billions of people. You think they care about our ethics? The assistant said nothing. Lisa understood his discomfort. She felt it too. But feelings didn't matter anymore. Only survival mattered. The AI cores were loaded. Each shadow now contained a mind capable of making split-second combat decisions faster than any human. They would hunt the collective ships like wolves hunting deer, coordinating their attacks with inhuman precision. Deep in space, far beyond Neptune, the construction zones were coming alive. These facilities were the biggest secret of all. For 40 years, humanity had been sending resources out here, pretending they were building scientific stations. Instead, they had constructed shipyards on a scale the collective couldn't imagine. Admiral. Chen's voice came through on secure channels to every facility simultaneously. This is Admiral. Gender Protocol Nightfall is now active. All assets are authorized to move into attack positions. Maintain silent running. Wait for my signal. Throughout the solar system, humanity's hidden military began to move. Asteroids that were actually weapons platforms adjusted their orbits, slowly positioning themselves for clean shots at the collective fleet. Shadow ships launched from the lunar facility, their engines cold, moving on momentum alone. In the deep construction zones, massive ships that had never seen Earth began their long burn toward the inner system. The sovereign collective sat in Earth orbit. Completely unaware, Director Okonkwo watched it all from the command center in Geneva. Screen showed him every asset, every position, every system status. It was beautiful and terrifying in equal measure. Beside him, an analyst looked worried. Sir, even with all this, we're still outnumbered. The collective has 47 capital ships. Each one is bigger and more powerful than anything we've built. True, Okonkwo agreed, but they're designed to fight other capital ships. Energy weapons, missile volleys, shield warfare. They're preparing for the battle they expect to fight. He pulled up a display showing the tungsten rods loaded in the Kuiper Belt facilities. Each one was simple, just a long cylinder of dense metal. No explosives, no complicated systems, just mass and velocity. We're going to fight a different battle, he continued. They think war is about who has the biggest guns. We're going to show them that physics is the biggest gun of all. The analyst studied the display, then his eyes widened as he understood. A tungsten rod traveling at 90% of light speed would hit with more force than a nuclear weapon, and the collective's shields were designed to stop energy and explosives. Not kinetic impact. They'll never see it coming, the analyst whispered. That's the idea. In orbit above Earth, Emissary Calthor stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Dominance. Around him, his crew worked calmly. There was nothing to worry about. The humans were behaving exactly as expected, panicking, evacuating cities, desperately analyzing collective technology they couldn't hope to understand. Status of the human military? He asked. Their orbital defense platforms are powering up, reported the sensor officer. Primitive railguns and missile batteries. Nothing that can penetrate our shields, Knight. What about their fleet? They have 3 capital ships at Mars, 5 cruisers scattered throughout the inner system, and various smaller craft. Total tonnage is less than one of our ships, Lord Emissary. Calthor nodded. It was as he expected. The humans were weak, just like all the others had been. In 30 days they would submit. If they didn't, the demonstration would be quick and brutal. What he didn't know was that those 3 capital ships at Mars were decoys, running at full power to draw attention, while the real fleet stayed hidden. The 5 cruisers were real but outdated, kept active to give the collective something to count. And the various smaller craft his sensors detected didn't include the 400 shadow ships that were invisible to his technology. The collective had made the same mistake that all powerful empires make throughout history. They assumed their enemies would fight the same way they did. They assumed their technology would detect any threat. They assumed that a species barely a century into space travel couldn't possibly surprise them. They were wrong on every count. Deep in the Geneva Command Center, Admiral Chen checked the timer. 28 days until the collective's deadline. But humanity wouldn't wait that long. They would strike first, strike hard, and strike in ways the collective had never imagined. Send the final message to all asset commanders, she ordered. Hold positions until day 30. Let the collective think they're safe. Let them get comfortable. Then we show them what happens when you threaten humanity. Throughout the solar system, commanders acknowledged the order. The Dark Fleet was awake, armed, and positioned. Now came the hardest part: waiting. Above Earth, the collective fleet hung in orbit, masters of all they surveyed. They had no idea that they weren't predators waiting for prey to submit. They were prey, and they had flown straight into humanity's trap. Day 30 arrived with Earth's skies still dark with alien ships. The collective had grown impatient. Their sensors showed cities being evacuated, governments in chaos, and a population that seemed to be falling apart. It was time to remind the humans what happened to those who delayed their submission. Emissary Calthor stood on his bridge, reviewing the targeting data. The Australian outback had been chosen for the demonstration. Sparsely populated but close enough to major cities that the message would be clear. They would burn an area the size of Texas, killing perhaps 3 million humans. A light touch, really. Just enough to break their spirit. Charge the primary cannons, he ordered. Target the coordinates. We fire in 10 minutes, his crew moved to obey. Around Earth, the other collective ships powered up their weapons as well. Not to fire, but to show the humans that resistance was impossible. 47 ships all ready to rain death on the planet below. What Calthor didn't know was that his 10-minute countdown matched Admiral Chen's exactly. While he prepared to demonstrate collective power, she was about to demonstrate something far more terrifying: human ingenuity and ruthlessness. All assets, Chen said calmly into her communicator. Execute on my mark. 3, 2, 1. Mark. The Dark Fleet struck from every direction at once. Commander Webb pressed the firing button in his asteroid facility. 8 railguns fired simultaneously, each one launching a tungsten rod on a trajectory that would intersect the collective flagship in exactly 14 seconds. The rods were invisible, cold metal moving at incredible speed. The collective sensors designed to detect energy signatures and engine emissions never saw them. The first rod hit the eternal dominance on its port side. At 90% of light speed, the impact released energy equivalent to a 50-megaton nuclear explosion. The collective's shields, designed to disperse energy over their surface, did nothing against solid matter traveling at relativistic speeds. The rod punched through the shield like it wasn't there, through the hull and out the other side. 7 more rods followed in the next 2 seconds. Each one tore through the massive ship, turning its interior into a hellscape of superheated metal and explosive decompression. The eternal dominance, pride of the collective fleet, broke apart in a silent explosion that lit up Earth's sky like a second sun. Emissary Calthor died without ever understanding what killed him. Throughout the Kuiper Belt, 58 weapons platforms opened fire. Tungsten rods began falling on the collective fleet like rain. Ships exploded, their crews having just enough time to realize they were under attack before death found them. The collective's response was immediate, but useless. They turned their sensors to maximum, searching for the attacking ships. They found nothing. How could they shoot back at an enemy they couldn't see? Then the shadow ships revealed themselves. 400 small craft appeared from nowhere, swarming the collective fleet like angry bees. Each one carried missiles designed specifically to exploit the weaknesses in collective armor that humanity had studied for 20 years. They fired in coordinated waves, their AI cores calculating angles and timing with inhuman precision. A collective battleship tried to target the shadows with its point defense lasers. The AI ships predicted the firing pattern and moved before the lasers could lock on. 3 shadows died when they miscalculated, but 30 others pumped missiles into the battleship's engine section. It began spinning out of control, crashing into another collective ship in a tangle of metal and fire. Captain Maria Reeves piloted one of the few manned human ships in the battle. Her cruiser, the Defiant, had been hiding behind Earth's moon, engines cold, waiting. Now she brought it screaming around the lunar horizon at full burn. "Target that carrier," she shouted. "Hit them before they can launch fighters." Her weapons officer didn't hesitate. Missiles leaped from the Defiant's tubes, crossing the distance in seconds. The collective carrier's shield stopped the first volley, but the second and third punched through. The carrier broke in half, its fighter bays exploding in chain reactions. Maria felt sick. She was watching thousands die with each ship that exploded. Aliens, yes, but still thinking beings with families and dreams. But she pushed the feeling down. They had come to kill billions. This was war, and war had no room for mercy. Another target acquired, her weapons officer reported. Destroyer portside. Fire. The battle lasted 18 minutes. When it was over, 39 of the 47 collective capital ships were destroyed or disabled. The remaining 8 tried to run. Admiral Chen watched them flee on her displays. Don't let them reach the jump point. I want every one of them destroyed before they can report what happened here. The shadow ships pursued like hunting dogs. The collective ships were faster in straight-line speed, but they were damaged and panicking. Their captains made mistakes, zigging when they should have zagged. One by one, they died. The last collective ship made it as far as Mars before Commander Webb's facility launched one more tungsten rod on a perfect intercept course. The ship exploded in a flash of light that briefly outshone the red planet itself. Silence fell over the solar system. Humanity had just wiped out an entire collective battle fleet without losing a single capital ship. Only 23 shadow craft had been destroyed, their AI cores erasing themselves before the wreckage could be captured. In the Geneva Command Center, nobody cheered. They had won, but the victory felt hollow. The displays showed debris fields where ships had been, thousands of bodies floating in the void. Director Okonkwo spoke quietly. Casualty estimates? Approximately 73,000 collective personnel dead, an analyst replied. We lost 146 people in the shadow craft that were destroyed. Sarah Chen closed her eyes briefly. 73,000. She had just ordered the deaths of 73,000 beings. It didn't matter that they had come to enslave humanity. It didn't matter that they would have killed billions. She still felt the weight of it. But she couldn't show weakness now. She opened her eyes and straightened her shoulders. Send the recordings of the battle to every collective world, she ordered. Make sure they understand what happened here. And send our deepest condolences for their dead. We didn't want this war, but we'll finish it if we have to. Admiral, someone called out. We're receiving a transmission from one of the collective worlds. It's not military. It's civilian news media. Put it on screen. The display showed an alien newsroom similar enough to human ones that it was unsettling. The newscaster was speaking in a language the computers struggled to translate, but the emotion was clear: shock and disbelief. Behind the newscaster, footage of the battle played. The destruction of the Eternal Dominance, the shadow ships swarming like locusts, the complete annihilation of what the collective had believed was an unstoppable fleet. They're broadcasting it everywhere, the communications officer reported. Every collective world is seeing this. The whole galaxy is going to know what happened here within hours. Okonkwo watched the broadcast with a grim expression. We just changed everything. The collective has ruled through fear for 3,000 years. Nobody has ever successfully resisted them. Until now, Sarah nodded slowly. They had won the first battle, but the war was just beginning. The collective would respond with overwhelming force. Every alien empire would now see humanity as either a threat or an opportunity. Earth's safety depended on making sure everyone understood the cost of attacking humans. Begin Phase 2, she said. Send our ships to the coordinates of collective military bases. It's time to take this fight to them. Around her, officers moved to execute the order. The Dark Fleet, revealed now for all the galaxy to see, began moving out of the solar system. They were taking the offensive, striking before the collective could gather its strength. Above Earth, the skies were clear for the first time in 30 days. The alien ships were gone, reduced to expanding clouds of debris. Humanity had passed its first test, but as Admiral Chen watched the stars, she knew the hardest tests were still ahead. They had shown the galaxy that humans could fight. Now they had to show that they could win. The Sovereign Collective's capital world, Calvesh Prime, had never known defeat. For 3,000 years, it had been the center of an empire that stretched across 47 star systems. Its leaders sat in crystalline towers that reached toward the sky, secure in their power and certain of their superiority. That certainty shattered the moment news of the Earth fleet's destruction reached them. High Council Leader. Tashavar watched the battle recordings for the third time, unable to believe what his eyes were showing him. A fleet of 47 ships, each one a masterpiece of collective engineering, had been destroyed in 18 minutes. By humans, by a species that should have been weak and primitive. How? He demanded. How did they hide these weapons? Our scouts reported primitive technology. Our sensors detected nothing unusual in their system. The military commander, General Kethal, looked as shaken as Tashavar felt. They deceived us, High Leader. Everything we saw was carefully designed to make us underestimate them. While we were watching their obvious defenses, they were building weapons we couldn't detect. Impossible. Our sensor technology is the most advanced in the galaxy. Was the most advanced, Kethal corrected quietly. The humans appear to have developed stealth capabilities beyond anything we've encountered. And their kinetic weapons. He paused, struggling with the words. We never considered that anyone would use relativistic projectiles. The energy requirements are enormous and the trajectories are difficult to calculate, but the results are devastating. Tashavar slammed his hand on the table. Then we respond with overwhelming force. How long to assemble a fleet of 400 ships? 3 months, High Leader. But I must advise caution. The humans, caution? Tashavar's voice rose. They destroyed an entire battle fleet. If we show weakness now, every subject species will think they can rebel. We must crush Earth completely, turn their world into an example that will be remembered for millennia. While the collective leadership planned their revenge, something else was happening across their empire. On the mining world of Velkar, a subject species that had been enslaved for 6 centuries gathered in secret. They watched the recordings of Earth's victory on hidden devices, their hearts pounding with something they hadn't felt in generations. Hope. The humans fought back. One of them whispered, "They won! 1 battle," another replied. "The collective will destroy them for this." Maybe, but they showed us it's possible. The collective can be beaten. Similar conversations were happening on dozens of worlds. The collective subjects had lived under domination for so long that they had forgotten what freedom meant. But the humans had reminded them. If one species could resist, maybe others could too. And then the second message arrived. It appeared simultaneously on every communication device in collective space. Military channels, civilian networks, even personal terminals flickered to life with the same broadcast. The collective security systems, supposedly impenetrable, might as well have been made of paper. A human face appeared. It was Admiral Chen, though the collective didn't know her name yet. To all the peoples of the sovereign collective, she began. Her voice was calm, almost friendly. My name is Admiral Sarah Chen of United Earth. 3 weeks ago, the collective came to our world and demanded our submission. They wanted 60% of our resources and 40% of our people as slaves. We refused. The image changed, showing the destruction of the collective fleet. The footage was clear and undeniable. This is what happens when you threaten humanity. But we didn't send this message to boast. We sent it to show you something important. The collective is not invincible. They can be beaten. They can be resisted. The image changed again, now showing detailed schematics of collective military installations, government facilities, and command centers. Locations that should have been top secret appeared with precise coordinates and structural weaknesses clearly marked. We've been preparing for this confrontation for 20 years, Chen continued. During that time, we placed assets throughout collective space. Assets that have been gathering intelligence, mapping vulnerabilities, and positioning themselves for maximum impact. Some of these installations no longer exist. Our stealth weapons destroyed them 3 hours ago. On Calvesh Prime, alarms began blaring. Reports flooded in from across the Empire. Military bases destroyed by unseen attackers. Communication hubs offline. Orbital defense platforms reduced to debris. The humans had struck deep into collective territory and nobody had seen them coming. We don't want to conquer you, Chen said. We're not interested in building an empire, but we will defend ourselves and anyone else who stands against tyranny. To the subject species of the collective, rise up now. Fight for your freedom. We'll provide what help we can, but your liberation must be your own work. To the collective leadership, leave us alone, leave your subjects alone, or we will dismantle your empire piece by piece. The broadcast ended, but its effects rippled across space. On Velkar, the mining world, the secret gathering had grown to hundreds, then thousands. The slave overseers found themselves facing a mob that no longer feared punishment. Within hours, the collective's administrative complex was burning. On 3 other worlds, similar rebellions erupted simultaneously. Subject species that had been crushed under collective rule for centuries saw their opportunity and took it. The empire that had seemed eternal suddenly looked fragile. In the Geneva Command Center, Director Okonkwo monitored the results of Chen's broadcast. Velkar is in open revolt, an analyst reported. The collective garrison is trying to restore order, but they're outnumbered. 2 other systems are showing similar patterns. The collective is having to divert ships from their revenge fleet to deal with internal problems. What about their allies? Chen asked. That's the interesting part, Admiral. The collective has 17 allied species who provide ships and resources. 6 of them have quietly started withdrawing their forces. They're claiming equipment failures and supply issues, but intelligence suggests they're reassessing whether supporting the collective is worth the risk. Chen nodded. This was exactly what they had hoped for. The collective's power came from fear and momentum. Break that momentum, show that resistance was possible, and the whole structure began to crack. Emissary Calthor, the sole survivor of the Earth Fleet's command staff, sat in a cell deep beneath Geneva. He had been rescued from an escape pod, one of only 300 survivors from the entire fleet. Now he served as humanity's window into how the collective thought. Admiral Chen visited him personally. She found him sitting calmly, his 2 large eyes watching her without emotion. Your species is making a terrible mistake, he said. The High Council will send 400 ships to Earth. They will burn your world so thoroughly that not even bacteria will survive. Maybe, Chen agreed. Or maybe they'll find that attacking us costs more than they're willing to pay. Your fleet came here expecting easy victory. Instead, they found that we fight differently than you expected. We don't match your strength with strength. We use stealth deception and weapons you weren't prepared for. Tricks, Calthor said dismissively. The next fleet will be ready for your tactics. Will they? Chen pulled up a display on her tablet, showing it to him. This is the current status of your empire. 3 worlds in open rebellion. 6 allied species pulling back their support. 17 military installations destroyed by weapons you still can't detect. Your revenge fleet is already being broken up to deal with internal problems. Calthor studied the display. For the first time, she saw something like doubt cross his alien features. You think you've won, he said slowly, but you've only made everything worse. Even if the collective falls, there are other empires. Stronger ones. They'll see Earth as a threat now, a species that breaks the old rules, that refuses to submit. They'll unite against you. Let them try, Chen replied. We spent 10,000 years fighting each other on Earth. We learned every form of warfare, every strategy, every way that the weak can defeat the strong. We brought all that knowledge to the stars with us. If the galaxy wants to test us, we're ready. She stood to leave, then paused. Your people thought we'd submit because that's what everyone else did. But humanity has a saying, give me liberty or give me death. We meant it. As Chen left the cell, Calthor sat in silence. He was beginning to understand something that terrified him. The humans hadn't just beaten one fleet through luck or surprise. They had been preparing for galactic war since the day they first met other species. They had studied every empire, every conflict, learning from 3,000 years of galactic history while adding their own brutal lessons. The sovereign collective had ruled through fear. But humanity had introduced something new to the galactic order. Defiance backed by absolute ruthlessness. And that changed everything. 6 months after the destruction of the collective fleet above Earth, the galaxy looked very different. The Sovereign Collective's revenge fleet never reached human space. It fragmented before it could even leave collective territory, pulled apart by rebellions, defections, and the quiet withdrawal of allied species who decided that supporting the collective was no longer in their interests. The empire that had stood for 3,000 years was collapsing not from external conquest, but from internal rot that humanity had exposed. Admiral Chen stood on the observation deck of the new space station Unity 1, watching ships from a dozen different species dock at the platforms around her. Some were former collective subjects. Others were independent worlds that had watched Earth's victory and decided they wanted to be on humanity's side. Together, they were forming something the galaxy hadn't seen before, an alliance based on mutual defense rather than domination. The representatives from Velkar have arrived, Director Okonkwo said, joining her at the window. They want to thank us personally for the weapons and intelligence support during their rebellion. We barely did anything, Chen replied. They won their freedom themselves. But they wouldn't have tried without us showing them it was possible. That's the part that scares the old empires. We didn't just beat the collective militarily. We broke the psychological chains that kept their subjects in line. Below them, a Velkar ship docked smoothly. The species that had been slaves 6 months ago now moved as free beings, their ship bearing the symbol of their new government. It was a small thing, but it represented a massive shift in galactic power dynamics. Captain Maria Reeves arrived on the observation deck, saluting briefly. She looked tired. The last 6 months had been brutal, with humanity's dark fleet engaging in dozens of small battles across collective space, supporting rebellions and destroying military installations. "Report from the Jupiter facility," she said. "The new Shadow-class ships are ready for deployment. We've incorporated lessons learned from the first battle. They're faster, stealthier, and carry more firepower." "How many?" Chen asked. 800. With the original 400, that gives us 1,200 stealth ships, plus the new capital ships coming online from the deep construction zones. Maria paused. "Admiral, we now have the most powerful navy in known space. By a significant margin." Chen absorbed that information. Earth, a species that had been struggling to colonize 3 worlds just a year ago, now commanded enough military force to threaten any empire in the galaxy. It was terrifying and necessary in equal measure. "The question is what we do with it," Okonkwo said quietly. "The collective ruled through fear and force. We could do the same. We have the power." "No." Chen's voice was firm. "We built the Dark Fleet to defend ourselves, not to become the next tyrants. Every weapon we have is a deterrent, not a tool for conquest." "Some of the other species are asking for human protection," Maria said. "Not alliance, actual protection. They want our ships in their systems, our weapons platforms in orbit. They're scared of what happens when the other empires respond to what we did." That was the problem Chen had been wrestling with for months. Humanity had broken the old order, but nature abhors a vacuum. If Earth didn't step into the power void the collective's collapse had created, someone else would. And that someone might be worse. The galaxy had operated on one principle for millennia: the strong dominate the weak. Humanity had proven they were strong. Now they had to show the galaxy a different way to use strength. "We offer defensive pacts, not protection," Chen decided. "Any species that wants to join our alliance agrees to 3 things. They maintain their independence, they contribute to mutual defense, and they don't wage wars of conquest." "We're not building an empire. We're building a coalition of free worlds. The other empires will see it as a threat," Okonkwo warned. "They already see us as a threat, at least this way. We're a threat that offers an alternative to their system." Over the next weeks, the coalition of free worlds took shape. 15 species joined initially, with more expressing interest. Each one contributed what they could: ships, technology, resources, intelligence. In return, they received humanity's protection and access to the defensive technologies that had shattered the collective fleet. The shadow ships were the most sought after. Every species wanted stealth capabilities. Chen approved sharing the technology, but only under strict conditions. No offensive use. No attacking civilian targets. Violations would result in immediate expulsion from the coalition and possible military action. It was a gamble. She was giving potential enemies the tools to hide from human censors, but it also bound them to humanity's cause. Break the rules, and you'd face not just Earth's military but the combined forces of the entire coalition. The old empires watched these developments with growing concern. The Talvar Dominion, an empire even larger than the collective had been, sent an ambassador to Unity 1. Chen met with her in a conference room designed to be comfortable for multiple species. Ambassador Reshivar was elegant and clearly intelligent. She studied Chen for a long moment before speaking. "Your coalition is causing problems, Admiral. Species that previously paid tribute to the Dominion are now refusing, citing their membership in your alliance. This cannot continue." "Then don't demand tribute," Chen replied calmly. "Trade with them as equals." "The galaxy has never worked that way." "Then maybe it's time the galaxy changed." Chen pulled up a star map. "For 3,000 years, the strong have preyed on the weak. Empires rise, dominate, eventually fall, and new empires take their place. It's an endless cycle of suffering. We're offering something different. And if we refuse to change, if we view your coalition as a threat that must be eliminated," Chen met the ambassador's eyes, "then you'll learn the same lesson the collective did. We don't want to fight you, but we will if we have to, and we'll win." It wasn't a boast. The Dominion's intelligence had surely reported on humanity's military capabilities. They knew what Earth could do. "You've made yourselves the enemy of every established power in the galaxy," HFY said. "Eventually we'll unite against you. Maybe. Or maybe you'll realize that the old system is dying and decide to be part of the new one." Chen stood. "We're not asking for submission, Ambassador. We're offering partnership, but we won't be dominated and we won't stand by while others are. That's not a threat. It's a statement of fact." The meeting ended without agreement, but Chen hadn't expected one. Real change would take time, possibly generations. The important thing was that humanity had changed the equation. The strong no longer automatically won just by being strong. In the months that followed, there were conflicts. A Dominion fleet tried to intimidate a coalition member world. Shadow ships appeared from nowhere and the Dominion fleet retreated rather than fight. A pirate confederation attempted to raid human supply lines. They were hunted down with ruthless efficiency by AI-controlled drones. Slowly, reluctantly, the galaxy began to adapt to the new reality. On Earth, people celebrated their freedom, but also grappled with what they had become. They had built weapons of terrible power, killed thousands of beings, and positioned themselves as a galactic military power. Some questioned whether the cost was worth it. Admiral Chen addressed these concerns in a speech broadcast across human space. 6 months ago, the Sovereign Collective came to Earth and demanded our submission. They wanted to take our resources, enslave our people, and reduce us to subjects of their empire. We refused. That refusal cost 73,000 lives. Most of them were collective personnel, but some were our own people. I carry the weight of those deaths every day, but I don't regret the choice we made, because submission would have cost billions of lives over time, countless generations born into slavery, the death of everything that makes us human. We chose freedom. We chose to fight, and we won. Now we face a new challenge. We're the most powerful military force in known space. We could use that power to build an empire, to become the very thing we fought against. Some species expect us to. Others fear we will. We won't. We built the Dark Fleet to defend ourselves and anyone else who refuses to submit to tyranny. Every weapon we have serves that purpose and no other. We're not conquerors. We're defenders. We're the line that says no further. The galaxy ran on one rule for millennia: the strong dominate the weak. We broke that rule. We proved that the weak, if they're clever and determined enough, can defeat the strong. More importantly, we showed that strength doesn't have to mean domination. It can mean protection. It can mean giving others the chance to be free. This is our promise to the galaxy. We will never start a war, but we will finish any war started against us or our allies. We will never demand submission, but we will defend the right of every species to govern themselves. We will never conquer, but we will absolutely destroy anyone who threatens human freedom or the freedom of our coalition partners. The old empires think we're naive. They think eventually we'll become like them, corrupted by power. They're wrong. We spent 10,000 years learning that the price of freedom is eternal vigilance. We learned that power without principle leads to tyranny. We learned these lessons in blood and fire on our own world. Thank you for watching and comment for next part.